What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to Propability. We're going to take a data-driven look into all of these props for UFC 277. I already have two bets on the card, so looking forward to see if the prop template does line up. And as always, guys, we are here with Uncle Weezy, the man behind the stats. What is up, Uncle Weezy? Looking forward to the show.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. I'm always looking forward to this show. Love data-driven angles on how to find some value in these time props. And, we got some really interesting stylistic matchups on this fight. Unfortunately, we don't have all the fight doesn't go to decision lines yet. They just haven't dropped yet. For some reason, 5 dimes. They normally have all the fight doesn't go lines out Sunday night. Here we are Monday night and still nothing. So I don't know what's going on there, but we've got a bunch of over 1.5s and 2.5s that we can analyze here, and we got fight doesn't go to decision probably for about 8 out of the 13 fights. So we've got a decent amount of work to do tonight. I can't wait to get into it.
Yep, absolutely. Cannot wait for it. And yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe they don't know it's a pay-per-view week, but usually they have them out. Even for like the fight night card, they would have them out like around like 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. That's when they typically get all these props out. But no, we're still missing some props for 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 fights. So we'll talk about the over-unders though, as always. Yeah, guys, I do want to shout out the chat before we get started. Uncle Weezy, first one in the chat. What is up, Uncle Weezy? We got Danny in the chat, Dave, Andy, Philip, Tupac, and we have Daz as well. If you guys have not already, please leave a like, subscribe here to the MMA Engine. Me and Uncle Weezy did a main event deep dive earlier on. Me and Lou went live for the Dana White's Contender Series talking about our best bets. So lots of content on the channel already, and then lots of content coming this week as well. So make sure you are subscribed to not miss out on that. But I say we get into it, and we are going to start with the very first fight of the night, and we have Orion Cosce going against One Blood Diamond. Should be a fun fight here. We have the over-under set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 minus 126. The under 1.5 rounds is minus 104. This is a kind of a weird one. This one's been open. They've had odds on this fight since June 8th, and the under 1.5 was plus 125 for the longest time. And just recently, there's money been coming in on this under 1.5. But yeah, I would have liked to see what the fight goes and the fight doesn't go is, because this is one I had circled easy for some violence.
Yeah, I mean, look at all that green on the left side of the screen here. We don't have much UFC data for these two guys combined, but you can see right here that Cosce, 8 of 8 of his pro fights have finished inside the distance. For Blood Diamond, it's 3 of 4. That's 11 of 12 combined, And at the UFC level, we've got 3 of their 3 combined fights have finished inside the distance. So we're definitely liking some violence in this spot. But we only have an over 1.5 and under 1.5 line. And as we can see, the bookies are kind of onto this one. Right now, the best over 1.5 line I can find is minus 126. That's a 55.75% implied probability. And when we compare that to the under 1.5 line, which is or the over 1.5, which is 66.51%, we can see that we're getting a 10.76% edge over the books there. And we can see that the books are definitely leaning on the side of violence here, as we've got an under 1.5 at plus 105, 48.78% implied probability, overpaying by 15.29% there. But we would expect to overpay. I mean, we've got 100% of their 3 combined UFC fights have finished inside the distance, and 91.7% of their combined 12 pro fights have finished inside the distance. So, but stylistically, I could see maybe Blood Diamond lasting a lot longer in the grappling exchanges than he did with Jeremiah Wells. So, Wells is a black belt and Orion Cosce is not. So, this could play out a little bit longer on the feet. And I don't even know how dangerous Blood Diamond is with the striking, because there's just not a lot of tape on this guy in terms of him as a mixed martial artist. So I'm actually leaning at the over 1.5 here, just because we're only paying minus 126. And if you compare it to the benchmarks for the division, it's 10.76% edge. That's pretty good. But I still think we might see money coming in on the under here. So I don't think there's any reason to rush to the window.
Yeah, and the under 1.5 is plus 110 on Bovada. But yeah, I kind of can see this fight getting extended. It's not like Orion's not his brother, Luis Cosce. Now, his cardio is completely atrocious. I don't think Luis has ever been over 1.5 rounds, but Orion has. Orion's actually been to the third round 3 times, and he has 3 third-round finishes on the Contender Series as well. Had a KO in the fight prior to that, and then also had another late KO as well. So he has been into the third round 3 times. Blood Diamond has been to decision as well. I need to see that fight doesn't go, and I have a feeling they're just going to completely overprice it, and it makes sense, why they would. Just stylistically, Orion Cosce, very dangerous on the mat. Blood Diamond, dangerous on the feet. Lots of head kicks that are probably going to land at will. So I get why they're going to overprice it, but it's not something I'm going to be running to the window for unless they completely mess up. This fight doesn't go to decision, but judging by the over-under set at 1.5, I think they're going to be all over this one, Weezy.
Yeah, if we look at that 15.3% overpayment that we're making on the under 1.5, let's just assume we're overpaying by 15.3% again on the fight doesn't go. Well, violence, 48.62% in the 170-pound division. So if we were to add 15.29 to that, we would get about 64%. So expect this thing to open maybe around minus 185, maybe minus 190, and then expect it to run from there, because nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, maybe this will be the second out of 13 fights combined for these guys that wind up going the distance. So I don't see people running to the window to smash fight goes to decision when it opens. So, if you're looking for violence here, maybe just stalk those books until they open that line and smash it right when it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, minus 185, I would definitely pull the trigger there. But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that one. Hopefully they get lines out. I'd imagine they do early tomorrow morning. Move on to the next fight though. Kind of a weird one here. We have Ihor, Potieria going against Nicolae, Negumereanu. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 rounds plus 110. The under 2.5 rounds minus 140. The under opened up at minus 180, and money's actually came in on this over. And this one's a tricky one for me because Ihor, I think if he wins, honestly, it's probably a first round finish. But Negumereanu is extremely tough, extremely durable, hard to knock out. I kind of personally see this fight getting extended, but both guys lack striking defense and both guys have a lot of power. So I think I would lean towards the violence aspect of this fight, Weezy, at minus 140. I'm curious to see what the prop template's on this one.
Yeah, I mean, we once again we have to look to the left side of the spreadsheet because we just don't have enough numbers on Negumereanu and Potieria combined at the UFC level to really kind of trust the data. But 26 of their 34 combined fights have finished inside the distance. That's 76.5%. We compare that to the finishing rate of the division at 57.3%. That's 19.2% better there. And it's, we don't have a measurement against the implied probability of the line. We've got 8 of their 34 combined fights have went to decision. It's only 23.5%. So I'm surprised that this is set, at minus 140 for the under 2.5 here. We're only overpaying by 3.08%. But Negumereanu's fights have only finished inside the distance 1 of 4 times at the UFC level. So maybe that's what they're looking at. But I mean, stylistically, it feels like this fight, somebody's getting knocked out, almost for sure. And I know Negumereanu is very durable, but he throws bombs too. And while I think Potieria has got the better technical striking and the more varied arsenal, Negumereanu is a beast, and he just walks forward and throws a bunch of volume and trusts his chin. So this is going to be a banger, I think, and it's kind of hard for me to see it going the full 3 rounds. So under 2.5 at minus 140 for 205-pound fights, we're just not overpaying by that much here. But we do have to keep in mind that, Negumereanu's fights are just not finishing at the UFC level. So, if that trend continues, we'll be paying juice and losing the under 2.5 bet here. But Potieria, very much, a finisher. And we can see, 16 of his 21 fights finishing inside the distance. Both of these guys sitting right between 76 and 77% for their careers for finish rates. To think that we could get this at, for fight doesn't go to decision, something sitting around minus 170, feels like it would be a pretty good violence bet.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, the only thing I don't like about this fight is it's extremely sketchy, especially on the Ihor side. And he's a good finisher, but some of his opponents, man, are just terrible. But yeah, I mean, I think these guys stand and bang with a very small. I don't think there's going to be any striking defense involved. I would lean towards that under, if anything, there at minus 140. And I'd be curious to see if money keeps coming in on this over, because that over got smashed at plus 150. Now it's plus 110. So I'm curious to see where that line does go. But yep, I would be leaning violence as well. I just don't know if I want to get invested on that mess of a fight. This one's interesting. We have Joselyn Edwards going against Jion Kim. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 400. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 300. And the over 2.5 rounds actually opened up at minus 375, and money actually came in on that. And now the over 2.5 is minus 400. So my goodness, I guess people are expecting this to go to decision. I expect it to go to decision, but you are laying a heck of a price tag for it.
Yeah, really quite a bit. I mean, I don't know how you can be really that confident, but 14 of their 31 combined pro fights have finished inside the distance. That's 45%. That's 10% better than the divisional finish rate of 35%. By the way, this fight is taking place at bantamweight, not flyweight, because Edwards took the fight on short notice, and she's a bantamweight. No way she's cutting down to flyweight for the first time in her career on short notice. So at 135, we've got a 35% finish rate, not a 41% finish rate like we have at 125. Yeah, but we don't have a fight doesn't go to decision line here. But let's just assume, let me put something in for it here, because we see that these fights are finishing in that last 2.5 minutes, a little over 6.5% of the time. So if we add 6%, 86% implied probability would be like a minus 500, I think. That's 83. Maybe minus 460. Let's see what that is. 82. Man, we would have to jack it up even more than that. God, man, minus 550, really? 84? Look, dude, this is so juiced. I mean, who's parlaying minus 400 for an over 2.5? The under 2.5, while it's at plus 300, we're only getting a 3.19% edge over the books. Even at that price, it's kind of shocking, to be honest with you, man. This is just a screaming stay away. But, we see why the numbers are like they are. Only one of the 12 combined fights for these two ladies at the UFC level is finished inside the distance. And in 0 of 7 losses, neither one of these ladies ever been finished at the UFC level. And even as pros, only 1 of 9 losses has come inside the distance. So, you if you're not concerned at all with value and just cashing bets, yeah, over 2.5 probably cashes. Fight doesn't go to decision, probably cashes, but it's not even close to being good enough to bet.
Yeah, and then local man shakes fist says the fight goes to decision is minus 335 on 5.
Wow. So that must have just opened. I guess maybe 5 Dimes has lines out.
Yeah,
right
I don't see it myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
don't see it on Best Fight.
Maybe he actually has like the 5 Dimes account.
Okay, yeah. See, we can't even get a goddamn 5 Dimes account. These bastards, Brady. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy at minus 335, but that's just 5 Dimes doing what they do. Yeah. Oh wait, fight goes to decision.
Fight goes, yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible that you can get it at a better price than what you can get the over 2.5 for. So,
okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not touching it. And he's saying that 5 Dimes does have some lines out, but they're not updating on the best fight odds. So, which makes sense, right? Like usually 5 Dimes has all these lines out by now. So that sucks. Yeah. And I can't even look at the lines, but maybe local man shakes fist. You can keep helping us out or on some of these that we need. We'll move on though to the next one. We have Michael Morales going against Adam Fugit. We have the over-under set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 is plus 100. The under 1.5 is minus 130. The under 1.5 opened up at minus 110. It has been taking some money and currently at that minus 130. Weezy, what is sticking out on this one here?
Well, I mean, just looking at comparing the benchmark for under 1.5, which is 33.5% at this division. We're paying 56.52% implied probability. So we're overpaying by 23% at an under 1.5 violence bet at minus 130 here. But we see why when we look at the stats, right? Morales' fights finishing inside the distance 11 of 13 times. Fugit, 8 of 10 times. So 82.6% of these guys, 23 combined pro fights are finishing inside the distance. So these guys are definitely finishers. Morales has never lost. Fugit has been finished in 1 of 2 losses. So 2 great finishers on the offensive end. We don't really know what these guys' durability is like because we really only have 2 pro losses combined between the 2 of them. But know for a fact that these guys are finishers. Definitely saw Fugit wrestle a lot here when I was watching tape on him. And we know Morales does wrestle a lot too, even though he's got a ton of power. But when I'm getting a 16.51% break to go over 1.5 and only paying plus 100, that's something I really do have to look at here. It's just got to go 7.5 minutes. And it looks like Fugit can wrestle and kind of slow things down a little bit. So that probably is going to be the way I'm looking here. I'd love to know where fight goes and fight doesn't go are sitting, but man, that's so let's see, what has he got? His local man Shakes Fist helping us out with fight goes and fight doesn't go lines here?
No.
Damn it. Okay. So got to think that the value is on the over 1.5, which is the only line that we have here. That under 1.5 at a 56.5% implied probability is a severe overpayment. I mean, it might cash, but I can't lay minus 130 in this weight class when they're only going under 1.5, a third of the time.
Yeah, this is one I won't be touching. My analysis is that Morales does knock out Fugit in the very first round. And then, that minus, oh my God, 25. Yeah, minus 285. Yeah. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, wow. These lines are already getting smashed, and we haven't even seen them open yet.
I know, right?
Man, I'll tell you, man, I'm almost looking forward to when football starts up and these other sports start up, because we'll get some of these casuals out of the pool that are just pushing everything that's juiced to being even more juiced.
Yeah, minus 285. Nothing you can do there.
Yeah, man, wow. But not much you can do there, Brady. I mean, if you're value hunting, you're going overs and fight goes here. And if you just don't care about value in your parlay and shit, hey, hit the unders, man. It looks like, both of these guys are really good finishers.
Even like Morales inside the distance, minus 180. Like, gosh, man. Like, I think he finishes, but whoa.
That's just, I mean, you can't do that. You can't laying that kind of juice on a finished prop. I mean, wow. The market is really loving Michael Morales here, and it's making him almost unbettable just about everywhere.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next one. We have Drakkar Klose going against Rafa Garcia. We have the over under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 220, the under 2.5 rounds is plus 180. We do have the fight goes to decision minus 190, and the fight doesn't go to decision is plus 155. Weezy, what is sticking out on this one?
So, this is one of those stop the violence bets here, as we see that these guys have got 4 combined losses at the UFC level. Only one of them has been inside the distance, and 8 combined wins, and only 2 of them have been inside the distance. So that's exactly 25% of their fights that are finishing inside the distance. And we've got that being a 14.2% advantage over the implied probability of the line, which is 39.22%, and a 25.7% disadvantage over the finish rate, which is actually 50%. So obviously, for fight doesn't go to decision, it hates it. It's just saying like these guys don't finish nearly enough to be betting that. And then if we go down here to the fight goes, obviously 75% of their fights are going to decision. That's 25.7% more than the divisional decision rate at 155. And it's a 9.5% break over the implied probability of the line. So even at minus 190 here, This is not overpriced when you compare it to the sample size of 12 fights that these guys have had combined at the UFC level. However, when you compare it to the decision rate for the division, which is 49.28%, when you subtract the implied probability of the line at 65.52%, we see that we're overpaying here by about 16.24%. So it's not like minus 190 is a bargain or anything, but when you compare it to the data, that we have for these two combined fighters, it is a bargain. And then when you look at the stylistic matchup here, these are two guys that are very comfortable in grappling positions. They're both pretty good wrestlers. And Rafa Garcia in particular, really good defensively on the ground. He was swimming down there with Natan Levy, who's a good grappler, a black belt, and, really kind of dominated Natan down there. And we know that close, prior to the Brandon Jenkins fight, which I believe, that's his only finish, by the way, at the UFC level. And that guy's not really UFC level. Outside of that, we see a guy that's gone to decision in all 5 of his other wins and has been, somebody who wins control time positions up against the cage. He controls the pace of fights. So, the prop templates analytics, when you look at these guys' combined UFC experience, loves the over. And I think the stylistic matchup also gives us a nice look on the over 2.5 where the fight goes to decision for this one.
I was taking a hard look at the over 2.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. It was a minus 195 for a while. Didn't pull the trigger. It's now minus 205. So, I do like the over. I like the fight goes, but it's definitely, I bet it just continues to get wider and wider as the week goes on there. So I don't know if I'll touch it at minus 220 here, even like minus 205. I really kind of like that minus 195, but I do lean some non-violence on this one. Let us move on to the next fight. We have another really weird one. We have Dontel Mays going against Hamdi Abdelwahab. We have the over-under set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5, minus 150. The under 1.5 is plus 120. Just such a weird fight, Weezy. So I don't know. Could this fight finish early? Yeah. Could it squeak over? Yeah. I really have no clue what's going to happen on this one.
Yeah, it's hard to know. If you enjoy looking at morbidly obese men, go watch the tape on Hamdi Abdelwahab, because you're going to see some dudes that, it's really something that some of these guys are even willing to take their shirt off and get in a cage when they know there are people with cameras in the arena, because that's who Hamdi Abdelwahab has fought. It's hard to look at. So it's really hard to know how good this guy Abdelwahab is going to be at the UFC level, especially on short notice. And this is a heavyweight fight, and he's fighting Dontel Mays. And Dontel Mays is absolutely one of the biggest heavyweights that the UFC has to offer you. And now you got to take this fight on short notice. But Abdelwahab, an Olympic wrestler for the country of Egypt, and he's got some power in his hands. You see him knocking out some of these tomato cans that he's been put up against. But like I say, this is a huge, huge, huge step up. This is like an elevator to the 50th floor step up for Hamdi Abdelwahab here. But what do we got for lines here? We got an under 1.5 at plus 125, an over 1.5 at minus 150.
Yeah, the fight doesn't go minus 195 on 5 dimes.
Minus 195 on 5 dimes for the fight doesn't go, and for the fight goes?
Plus 160, which that minus 195 shocks me for a fight like this.
It absolutely shocks me, because just with Dontel Mays' statistics, we've got a guy who's finished inside the distance 6 to 7 times. That's 85%. And then you've got a guy in Abdelwahab who only has 3 professional fights, has finished all of them inside the distance, and they may or may not be complete frauds who don't deserve to be even, pro mixed martial artists. It's hard to know, though, because 2 fights in Icon, and I think another fight in Jorge Masvidal's promotion prior to Icon. But who the hell knows what this guy's going to have to offer. But look, if I'm getting minus 195 for fight doesn't go to decision for a debutante against Dontel Mays, I'm jumping on that. That probably is a parlay piece for me. By the time it opens for us, Brady, what, minus 325?
Yeah. Which, wait, this is weird. I'm looking at Hamdy's record on SureDog. It looks like they randomly added 2 wins. It says he's 5-0.
Yeah, but I think that they're giving those bare knuckle fights that he had against those fat dudes. I think they're counting them as pro fights.
It says Gamebred Fighting Championship, Gamebred Fighting is Championship, Jorge Masvidal's Icon, Freedom Fight Night, and then another Jorge Masvidal. Are any of those bare knuckle?
I think it's the game.
Are the Gamebred ones fight bare knuckle?
Yes, I believe it's the Gamebred ones that were. You know what? I've got it on my screen, so let's just look that up because it's important information for us to know this. Because on Tapology, there's only 3 official fights, and they're counting the official ones as Icon FC 3, Freedom Fight Night, and Icon FC 1. And that win over Dustin Clements, that win at 3:25 of round number 3 came because Dustin Clements injured his own leg going for like some shitty kick at the end of the second round. And then when he tried to stand back up in the third round after Hamdy took him down, he couldn't even stand up. So it was a leg injury. That fight would have actually went to decision if Dustin Clements knew how to properly throw a kick that missed without tearing up his own knee. So, this is the level of competition, that we've seen him go against. So it's hard to know what this guy's got in the tank here. But I'm fine with betting violence in this fight, dude, especially if it's minus 200. That would be a parlay piece for me.
Yeah, I like it. Even Local Man shakes fist saying they have Mays inside the distance, which that was something I had my eye out for. I was hoping for plus money. Looks like they have it at plus 165. So that is something else to be taking a look at if I do get access to that line, hopefully tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, this one is definitely the data loves violence here.
Sounds good. Let us move on to the next fight. We have Drew Dober going against Rafael Alves. This fight should be an absolute banger. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 plus 130. The under 2.5 is minus 160. The fight goes to decision plus 140, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 170. Weezy, what is sticking out on this one?
So 70.5% finish rate combined for these guys in their wins, 66.67% finish rate in their losses. So, just under 69% of their pro fights have finished inside the distance combined. And then if we look at the combined UFC numbers, not as much as you'd think. Only 12 of 21 have finished inside the distance. That's 57.1%. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting here at minus 170. That's a 63% implied probability. If we compare that 63% to the 57% finish rate for these two guys, we're overpaying by 5.8%. And these guys are finishing at a 6.4% better rate than the divisional benchmark, which is 50.72%. So, it looks like the overs are underpriced according to the benchmarks, and the violence bets are overpriced here, as we can see in the red, according to the benchmark. So they're definitely leaning violence. But with Dober only finishing fights at 55.6% at the UFC level, it would be troubling laying minus 170 for fight doesn't go to decision here. But the 2 out of 3 fights for Alves, are definitely, Alves is the kind of guy you could feel pretty safe having a violence bet in because he is very explosive, especially early in fights. And when he hurts people, he jumps on that guillotine that he loves going after. And he's the kind of guy who we've seen give up a lot in the past. We look at these losses, right? And we see that as a pro, this guy, Rafael Alves, has been finished inside the distance 9 of 10 times. And you got to figure that Dober should be the favorite in this fight. So if Dober's projected to win this fight more times than he's losing it, and Alves has been finished in 9 of 10 losses, and Dober seriously has some power in his hands, it's easy to like this fight finishing inside the distance, despite the fact that the numbers aren't screaming at you to take it, but they're also not screaming at you to say you got to stay away from a violence bet in this spot too. It depends on which metrics drive you to make your bets. And if you're one of those guys like me that likes making violence bets when you see guys that are both fighters are losing inside the distance more times than they don't. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good way to chase those bets. And I'm thinking violence is the way to go here.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Drew Dober is minus 250 on FanDuel. Looks like minus 194 on Bet Online there. But yeah, Drew Dober inside the distance sitting at plus 135. I think that's such a good look. Alves getting finished in 9 of his 10 losses. His one decision loss was against Damir Ismagulov, who's a really good fighter, amazing fighter, don't get me wrong, but Ismagulov just doesn't really finish anybody. So Drew Dober has a bunch of finishes in the UFC, knockout win against Terrence McKinney, knockout win against Hernandez, knockout win against Hackbrass. Like, those are no slouches at all. I think if this fight does get extended, it favors Dober. I feel like if Alves wins, it's probably in the first round. But I think that violence does cover both sides there. So yeah, I'm on violence as well. And yeah, I think this fight does finish more often than not. Should be a very fun fight as well. I think they're going to throw down. Let's move on to the next fight. We have Matt Semelsberger going against Alex Morono. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 180, the under 2.5 plus 150. The fight goes to decision is minus 150. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 120. This is one where I think if there's a finish in this fight, it's going to come on the Matt Semelsberger side. Semelsberger has a ton of power. Morono, not much of a finisher, kind of a decisionator. This is where I'd kind of, take a look at some of the props instead, like Semelsberger inside the distance, that's plus 230. Morono by decision is plus 235. And also I'd take a look at that scorecards equals no action for Semelsberger, which is minus 190. I just don't really see Morono finishing this fight, but curious to see what the numbers say about this one, Weezy.
Yeah, I mean, we could see here that if we look at the pro careers of these guys, Morono in 29 pro fights, his fights are only finishing inside the distance 48% of the time. But for Semelsberger, it's much higher in a lower sample size here. It's about 70%. So, you got a couple of differing styles here, but 4 of their 10 combined pro losses have been inside the distance. And then when we look here, you see a lot of red here for the violence bet because Morono's only been finished in 1 of 4 UFC losses, and Semelsberger's never been finished at the UFC level, and he fought Chaos Williams, he lost to Chaos Williams, who's got a ton of power. So yeah. 1 of 5 combined losses inside the distance for these two guys, and only 5 of 14 wins. So these are not violence numbers that inspire you. And for fight goes to decision here at minus 150, you were overpaying by 8.62% when we compare it to the divisional decision rate of 51.38% because we're paying 60%. But when we look at the data over a 20-fight sample size, we're seeing that 70% of these guys' combined fights are finishing inside the distance. That's that are going to decision. That's 18.6% better than the divisional decision rate, and it's 10% better than the implied probability of the line. So we kind of like that here in that, we're only paying minus 150 for the fight goes here, which is a 60% implied probability, but these guys are going 70% of the time to decision. So it's not like I like when we're getting, minus 150 and we're overpaying by 10 and we're only overpaying by 10%, when it's like instead of like minus 260 and we're only getting like a 6% edge, you want to get those bigger edges where you're paying less juice. And this is one of those cases. So minus 150 for this fight because Alex Morono has been very durable and because he's not much of a finisher, I could really see this fight going to decision, and I don't think it's overpriced here.
Yep, sounds good. I like it. Yeah, you take a look at Semelsberger. He has 2 finishes, but I mean, look at who he finished. Martin Sano in 15 seconds. Who's Martin Sano? I mean, I wonder if
I could tell you he's friends with the Diaz brothers. That's why he got that fight.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see him back. Probably not. And then, of course, Jason Witt, one of the worst chins, pound for pound in the UFC. So, nothing too impressive there in terms of knockout power, but he does hit hard. We got to say he does hit hard, but Morono is very tough. Only been knocked down twice in the UFC, so I would lean towards that fight goes as well. And yeah, minus 150, I don't hate that.
I agree, man. I think it's a pretty good spot, and the data seems to like it just based on what we've seen from these guys at the UFC level. And there's a 20-fight sample size, so we could take a little comfort in how robust that data is.
Sounds good. I like it. All right, let us move on to the next fight. We have Magomed Ankalaev going against Anthony Smith. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 140, the under 2.5 rounds plus 110. The fight goes to decision minus 110. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 120. This one's a frustrating fight for me because I feel like this fight should finish, but I also feel like Ankalaev could very well just go out here, take his time, secure the win, boring fight, and it goes to the decision. So I think the numbers will lean towards violence here, but I don't know if I can trust Ankalaev with a violence ticket, Weezy.
Yeah, it's a maddening fight because look at Anthony Lionheart Smith here, 33 of 36 wins inside the distance in his career. That's over 91%. 13 of his 16 losses. I mean, 16 losses and 13 of them are inside the distance. That's over 81%. So 88.5% of a massive sample size of 52 pro fights for Lionheart are finishing inside the distance. So right there, I'm saying to myself, God, I have to have a violence bet here. Smitty's fighting. And then when I see Magomed Ankalaev over on the other side of the cage, I go, this guy does absolutely nothing. Dude, I'll tell you, you want to fucking smash your television with a baseball bat? Have a big violence bet on Ankalaev in the Thiago Santos fight. Those guys stood in front of each other and did jack shit for 25 straight minutes here. So the thing is, though, here's that. Santos has been fighting at a snail's pace as well. I just don't see Smitty allowing Ankalaev to be technical here. I don't think it would behoove him in this fight because Ankalaev is so uncomfortable in a firefight, because he's, really looking to control the pace and keep things extremely slow and incredibly boring. I think that Anthony Smith could bring the kind of game plan that could give us some violence here. And look, the prop template's telling us that it likes it here. There's a lot of green over here, right? 5 of 9 of Ankalaev's fights have finished inside the distance. 12 of 17 for Smitty. So it's 17 to 26 overall. That's 65.5%. And for some reason here, in a division where we're finishing at 57.3% of the time, we're only paying 54% here. We're actually getting a 2.74% break when we compare that 57.29% finish rate to the 54.55% implied probability of the minus 120 line. In addition to that, you know what else we got, Brady? We got the trifecta for violence here. We got an 8.1% break when we compare the divisional finish rate of 57.29% to the 65.4% combined finish rate of these two guys. And we're getting a 10.8% break over the implied probability of the line at 54% when we compare these guys' 65.4% finish rate at the UFC level. So all green here. Green, and green for fight doesn't go to decision. I think I'm going to trust Anthony Smith to do what Anthony Smith does, and that's fucking fight. And I don't think Magomed Ankalaev is going to have the choice to be able to sit there and go, let me see if I can put this crowd to sleep tonight for the third straight fucking time. I think Smitty's going to bring it to this guy and that somebody's going to have to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because Ankalaev is going to try to make this as boring as possible. He had the last 3 fights, we just put everybody to sleep against Thiago Santos for 25 minutes, Uzdemir 15 minutes, Krylov 15 minutes. The Kudalaba fights were really fun, and that's because Kudalaba came to fight, right? So
that's what Kudalaba does. Yeah. Kudalaba's not sitting there looking to win minutes, and for Smitty, it's the same thing. I mean, look, Smitty's got 2 wins by decision at the UFC level. And he's got 3 wins by decision on 36 wins. He's not looking to win minutes. He's looking to take your fucking head off. So I think we can count on Smitty to bring violence here. That's a bet I'm making this week. You can count it.
Sounds good. I like it. Minus 120. Curious to see where that line does go. I feel like the popular opinion, including me, I'm picking Ankalaev by decision, but good point. Smith's going to bring it. Smith is going to force a fight. And if he forces a fight, both guys will definitely be live to finish because Ankalaev's dangerous. He just doesn't do anything. So, yeah, I don't hate that at all. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have Alexandre Pantoja going against Alex Perez. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 140, under 2.5 rounds plus 110. The fight goes to decision minus 130. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 100. This is kind of a tricky one from a over-under perspective because we have both guys who are pretty dangerous. I think Perez is around like a 50% finish rate. Pantoja a little bit higher than that. But we have two guys that, well, Pantoja, next level toughness, next level durability, never been knocked out, never been subbed. And then you have a guy like Perez who has been finished in all but one of his losses. So kind of a tricky one there in that aspect. So I'm curious to see what the numbers say about this one, Weezy.
Yeah, I mean, Pantoja's finished 17 of 24 wins inside the distance, but he's never been finished in 5 losses. So the finish rate combined for him sitting right around 58%. And it's kind of like the opposite for Perez in that he's only finishing 50% of the time as a pro, but he's getting finished 83.3% of the time as a pro. So sitting there right below 57% for his fights finishing. So yeah, 57.6% in 59 combined fights for these guys. But we got a good, robust amount of UFC data here. And Perez has been finishing both of his UFC losses, 0 of 3 for Pantoja. So 2 of their 5 combined losses, 10 of their 15 combined wins, 20 fights, 60% finish rate. Now we're only paying, we're paying 50% for the fight doesn't go to decision. So we're getting a 10% break there over the implied probability of the line. And these guys are finishing at a 20% better rate than the divisional benchmark, which is 39.9%. So while we're getting a couple of nice numbers here, we're not seeing the same thing that we saw last time in that the violence bet is a little bit overpriced in comparison to the divisional finish rate. But when we compare it to the sample size of these guys' fights at the UFC level, it's not overpriced yet. And as a matter of fact, it's pretty much underpriced. So this is a good violence spot, in my opinion, simply because it's an Alex Perez fight. Perez really does go for it early in fights. And like we say, he's not a durable guy. And if you're not durable and you don't get Pantoja out of there early, the cannibal is going to eat you. And it'll probably do it late second round, early third round to finish you. So this is another spot where even though we're overpaying by 10.09% when we compare the implied probability of the line to that long-term benchmark, the 20% advantage we have there and the 10% advantage there is enough for me to overlook that. I think I like violence in this spot.
Yeah, I think I'd take violence if anything. It's mostly because I am on the Pantoja side, and I think if there is a finish, it is on the Pantoja side. But yeah, plus 100. I think it's. I can also see Pantoja decision, so I don't. This is probably what I'm going to stay away from. What I did bet was the scorecards equals no action for Pantoja at minus 160. I feel like if there is a finish, it is most definitely going to be on the Pantoja side, unless Perez can potentially knock him out, which is going to be very hard to do. Figueiredo wasn't able to do it, and I definitely just kind of rule out the sub there. So I'm more so on the Pantoja finish only side, but if I was forced to play violence or non-violence, I think violence at plus money would be the way I would go. All right, 3 fights left. My goodness, we have Derrick Lewis going against Sergei Pavlovich. We have the over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 plus 115. The under 1.5 is minus 145. The fight goes to decision plus 400. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 600. I typically do not bet under 1.5 rounds, and I won't in this fight unless money keeps pouring in on that over. It looks like money is coming in on it, but I believe every single Pavlovich win inside the distance has been in that first round. So something to definitely mention there. I feel like this fight does end in the first round. So this is one where I'm going to kind of sit back and see if money keeps coming in on the over. If not, I'll probably just pass here. But I mean, it's clear violence, but it's in terms of the minus 600, there's just no way.
Yeah. I mean, obviously these guys are violent. 20 of 24 of Derrick Lewis's fights have finished inside the distance at the UFC level. And it's 4 of 4 for Pavlovich. So 85.7% of these guys' fights are finishing inside the distance. Check that out. They priced it perfectly. 85.7% is the implied probability of minus 600, and 85.7% is exactly the combined finish rate in wins and losses combined of Pavlovich and Lewis at the UFC level. So do we bet minus 600 straight? No. Do we parlay minus 600? No. If we shift over here to the 1.5, right, and we say maybe we want to go for the under 1.5, note that we're overpaying when we compare the 63.67% long-term finish rate of the heavyweight division to the 85.7% implied probability of line. So we're overpaying by 22%. But if we do the under 1.5 at minus 150, we're actually only overpaying by 16% when we compare that 60% implied probability to the under 1.5 long-term benchmark, which is 43.88%. So if you're looking for violence here, you kind of have to go to that under 1.5 and just say, look, let's just hope that these guys don't stand in front of each other. But if you're, of the impression that maybe they'll both be cautious because they both have fight-changing power, then you can maybe bet that over 1.5. Or if you're a serious masochist and like speeding up your heartbeat, maybe go fight goes to decision at plus 400, which will probably never happen. But this is one of those violence bets that's pretty evident to everybody that this fight is going to finish inside the distance. And when that happens, you usually get a line that's completely unbettable. And this line is completely unbettable.
Yeah, minus 600, just can't quite get there. I'm hoping money comes in on the over. If I can get the over, or if I can get the under around even money, I would definitely take that. But outside of that, I'm not laying minus 145 for an under 1.5, no matter who's fighting. So, one I'm going to be staying away from at the moment. But, I think the fight should finish into the distance, but no hot take there. All right, we have the co-main event and then the main event to talk about. We have the co-main event, Brandon Moreno, Kai Kara France, with the over-under set at 4.5 rounds, the over 4.5, minus 160. The under 4.5 rounds is plus 130. The fight goes to decision, minus 145. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 115. Weezy, let's hear these 5-round analytics.
Yeah, so let's just start with what these guys are doing at the UFC level here, because we've got a sample size of 21 fights. In 21 fights, only 7 have finished inside the distance for these two guys. So that's a third of the time. So the prop template doesn't particularly like violence when we look here at the UFC finish rates for these guys. And we know that Brandon Moreno's got next level durability. But let's look at the 5-round analytics here, as I've got the flyweight fights here. I'm going to cut and paste them into a sort. Okay, wait, let me just add this. And I'm going to see if there were any people that missed weight at 125 as well. So I have to go up here to the catch weights. And we did have 2 people that, it was Calvillo, so it's going to be this one. And when I have all these here, I can highlight the whole sheet, and then I can sort this according to F and G. So column F, smallest to largest, add level, column G, smallest to largest. And we're going to see that there have been only 20 flyweight fights that were 5 rounds at the UFC level, right? And we have had 12 of them finish inside the distance, so exactly 60%. So a 60% finish rate in 5-round fights, a 40% decision rate. So we've got for fight goes to decision, we're paying 59.18% for fight goes, but obviously only 40% of the 5-round fights are going to decision. So that is, we're overpaying by about 19% there. But when we compare what these guys are doing, we see that 12 of 21, so there were 2 draws for Brandon Moreno. Is that right? Brandon Moreno's had 2 draws. So yeah, it is actually 14 of 21. So this number is correct. 66.67% of their combined fights have went to decision. When you compare that to the implied probability of the line, we're getting a 7.5% edge. And when you compare it to the divisional finish or decision rate, we're getting a 6.6% edge. But really, actually, because the divisional decision rate is actually 40% at this level. So it's actually, we're getting a 26.67% break there. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of like fight goes to decision here. To pay minus 145 is a lot, but like I say, Moreno's incredibly durable, and we know that Kai Kara France is a scrapper too. So I'm leaning fight goes to decision here, but I don't really feel like it's a parlay piece. I feel like it's a little bit more of a straight bet type of a thing.
Yeah, and I would lean towards that fight goes as well. Curious to hear your thoughts on this. Brandon Moreno is almost impossible to finish. I mean, obviously, Kai Kara France is not going to submit him. If anything, it's Kai Kara France knocking him out. But even then, like, it's hard to see that happening. What's interesting to me is going to be the scorecards equals no action for Brandon Moreno. Let's see what that is at. Minus 200, which is interesting. That's around the money line there. Has Kai Kara France ever been finished? I think a couple times, right?
So Kai Kara France has been finished once at the UFC level and 5 times as a pro in 9 losses. But, I mean, when was that? That had to be a long time ago. I mean, I can remember he even went a scrappy 3 rounds with Danab Bakkarel on the regional scene. So I think if we were to go and look at Kai Kara France and the last time he was finished, it might have been like 2014 or some shit. So let's look at that real quick here just to see, because that isn't a long amount of losses inside the distance, right?
Yeah, Mark Striegel was the last time he got finished.
Striegel finished him, huh? Wow.
Yeah. Royval finished him.
Yeah, and even the first time they fought, that went to decision, you know, because these guys have fought before. So, yeah, Mark Striegel in 2014, Gustavo Falcaroli by Bravo choke in round 1. Yeah, and then a no contest against Gustavo Falcaroli. So I don't know who the hell Gustavo Falcaroli is, but he's finished this dude twice. So God. Anyway, yeah, it's been a minute since we've seen Kai Kara France get finished at the UFC, or I mean, as a pro prior to the Royval fight. So, yeah, this is something I'm going to be leaning towards the fight goes and the overs.
Yep, same here. All right, one last fight. We have the main event. Amanda Nunes going against Julianna Pena. The over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 115. The under 2.5 is minus 115. The fight goes to decision at plus 240. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 300 on FanDuel. They opened up the fight doesn't go at minus 280, and now that's minus 290. So money is coming in on the fight doesn't go, it looks like.
Yeah, and there's good reason for that. 7 of their 9 combined losses as pros have been inside the distance. So it's a very high finish rate, just as high as in their pro wins. So 78.1% in their wins, 77.8% in their losses. So 78% of their combined 41 pro fights are finishing inside the distance here. All 4 of these ladies' combined losses at the UFC level have been finishes. 14 of 21 wins have been finishes. This is a 5-round fight. So we've got 72% of their fights have finished inside the distance. Fight doesn't go to decision is sitting at minus 300. That is a 75% implied probability. And they're only finishing 72% of the time. So when you compare that to the implied probability of the line, we're still overpaying by 3%, even though these ladies are getting finished inside the distance 100% of the time at the UFC level. And also, when we look at the 5-round analytics, Brady, we see 22 bantamweight fights that have been 5 rounds. And, you know, there have been 16 of them that have finished inside the distance, you know, so that's over 70%. Am I right about that? Do you have the calculator in front of you?
What is it again?
16 divided by 22.
That is 16 divided by 22. That is 72.7.
Yeah, 72.7. And look, we're still paying 75% on the line. So, yeah, they've got it. Look, I like fight doesn't go to decision here. I think that this fight will finish inside the distance. Maybe it's a parlay piece at minus 300, but we're not getting a break here. I mean, look at that. Look at that 40% that we're overpaying there because, you know, it only shows 35% of the fights finishing inside the distance because it's using the 3-round analytics here. But when we compare it to the 5-round analytics, we're still overpaying by about 3%. we're overpaying here by about 3%. So it makes it tough to say that we're gonna bet that, but we can. I think it's much better as a parlay piece.
Yeah, I was hoping they would mess up this line, but they got it. I mean, 5 Dimes has minus 215. Fight doesn't go, which is a huge difference. But I guess we'll have to see what happens throughout the week. I thought money would come in on the fight goes and the overs. Maybe it does, but as of now, it looks like money is coming in on violence early on. So, yeah, I won't be touching it at minus 300 unless it comes down potentially. But yeah, like you said, as a parlay piece, I don't hate it there.
Yeah, because, stylistic matchup really does dictate that this one does finish inside the distance 100% of the losses, and it's a 5-round fight, and we know that they're finishing 72% of the time. And it's Peña against Nunes, somebody's probably getting finished here. So I don't mind parlaying it, but minus 300, I don't think that's never a good idea for a straight bet.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we did it 13 fights. Let's do a quick recap. What are the spots that are really sticking out? And then let's figure out a PP probability parlay.
So I like that fight goes or the over for the close fight, the close against Garcia.
Yep.
I like the fight doesn't go to decision for Mays against Abdul Wahab. And I also like, the fight doesn't go to decision for Smith Ankalaev, but that's a straight bet. We don't need to parlay that at minus 120. The fight doesn't go to decision for Dober Alves. Is sitting at
minus 170.
Minus 170. I think that could be a potential parlay piece. The fight goes to decision for Morono semi, I think is more of a straight bet. The fight doesn't go to decision for Pantoja Perez, I feel is more of a straight bet. But here's the pieces that I'm considering. Fight goes or the over 2.5 for Close Garcia. Fight doesn't go to decision for Mays versus Abdul Wahab. Fight doesn't go to decision for Dober Alves. And fight doesn't go to decision for the main event. So what do you guys think? What does the chat think we should throw on this parlay here?
Yeah, let's see. What do you guys in the chat think? Let's see. So the fight goes to decision and Close Garcia parlayed with the fight doesn't go to decision in the main event. That comes out to plus 105.
Plus 105. And what if we add that fight doesn't go to decision for Mays Abdul Wahab?
I don't know because it's not.
Oh, we don't know because that's right. You can't even put it into the parlay.
And to be honest, there's no way we get it at minus 195. There's no way.
Yeah,
I hope, but I don't know.
What we can't say what it's going to be, but let's do that.
Okay.
Violence for the main event, violence for Mays Abdul Wahab, and non-violence for Close Garcia. And let's say that that's going to be the 3-leg probability parlay for UFC 277 that is going to allow us to stack cash tickets like flapjacks and make these bookies cry.
Let's do it. That's the goal. Yeah. Silky agreeing, add the Mays, and I do like it as well.
Absolutely.
All right. We did it. We got the PP. We got the props. Looking forward to this week. I have a couple bets already. Going to be looking to add a couple more as soon as the books get out these lines. But yeah, Uncle Weezy, let the people know where they can find you and what you have going on throughout the rest of the week.
Yeah, so you can find me tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time after the Contender Series for Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. We'll be breaking down all 13 of these fights from a tape study and stats perspective. Going to give you a greasy 4-leg parlay and finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. On Wednesday, you can find me on Pub Sports Radio for the DFS show with DFS by the Numbers, Monk Maddox, and our guy Gordo Gambles. And you can also find me Wednesday night, I think 12 o'clock Eastern Time, on the Couch Warriors channel. We're going to break down UFC 277 with myself, Addicted to Combat, WizBets, and obviously the Couch Warrior. And I think that's going to end up my content for the week. So, yeah, the only thing left to do, stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 277. Thank all you guys for joining us tonight on Probability.
Sounds good. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I put out a ton of content today. I did a Dana White's breakdown on my channel. I did the full card breakdown for 277 on my channel. I did probability with Uncle Weezy, the main event deep dive with Uncle Weezy, and then a betting breakdown with Lou as well, all on the MMA Engine. So lots of content already posted. Going to be putting out some more content throughout the week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. and best of luck for UFC 277. See